When my children stopped knocking on my door, I didn't lock it. I didn't close the curtains either. I kept the light on, just in case. People ask me now how it felt. How it felt to be pushed away by the very people I once held in my arms. I tell them it didn't come with shouting or slammed doors. It came quietly. It came with unanswered calls. With holidays that passed like ordinary days. With silence sitting beside me at the dinner table. I remember one afternoon very clearly. It was raining outside, the slow kind of rain that feels like it has nowhere to go. I stood by the door, holding a grocery bag, listening to the wind. For a moment, I imagined my children outside. Just standing there, unsure whether to knock. I smiled without meaning to. Then I felt the ache return. That was the hardest part. Not the hurt itself, but the hope that refused to die. My children hurt me deeply. Not with cruel words. Not with anger. They hurt me by leaving space where love used to live. And still, I kept my door open. This is not a story about blame. It is not about good children or bad children. It is about a mother learning how to love without holding on too tightly. It is about pain that stays quiet. And forgiveness that arrives slowly. I had 3 children. 2 boys and 1 girl. They filled my house with noise when they were young. Mornings were loud back then. Cereal bowls clinking. Shoes missing when we were already late. Their father worked long hours. Some days, he came home tired and quiet. So most of the warmth in the house came from me. I did what mothers do. I worried. I watched. I stayed awake when they were sick. I learned their habits without trying. Who liked the crust cut off the bread. Who needed silence when they were sad. Our kitchen was the heart of everything. Homework spread across the table. Hands reaching for snacks. Stories told in half-finished sentences. I thought those days would last forever. Or at least live on inside them. As they grew older, things changed. Not suddenly. Slowly. They started needing me less. That felt normal. I expected that. They got married. They moved away. They built lives of their own. I was proud of them. I still am. At first, we talked often. Short calls. Long calls. Little updates. But over time, the space between us grew. I noticed I was always the one calling. Always the one asking, "How are you?" Always the one saying, "Let me know if you need anything." They never said they didn't want me around. They just stopped inviting me in. I told myself I was imagining things. That I was being sensitive. That this was what growing up looked like. Still, something felt different. When I visited, conversations stayed on the surface. No one asked about my days. No one lingered at the table. I began to feel like a guest. Polite. Temporary. And guests know when it's time to leave. The first moment that truly hurt came quietly. I called my oldest son one evening. I just wanted to hear his voice. He answered, distracted. "Mom, can I call you later?" he said. "I'm busy." Later never came. I told myself it was nothing. People get busy. Lives move fast. But it kept happening. Messages left unread. Calls unanswered. Plans cancelled at the last minute. I stopped calling as often. I didn't want to bother them. Then holidays changed. I spent one Christmas alone for the first time. I cooked a small meal. I ate slowly. I watched families across the street through my window. Laughter spilled out of their doors. I didn't feel jealous. I felt invisible. When friends asked about my children, I smiled. "They're doing well," I said. I never told them the truth. I didn't want pity. I didn't want blame. I just wanted my children back in some small way. One day, my daughter sent a short message. "We need some space, Mom." That was all. No explanation. No anger. Just space. Space can feel like freedom to one person and loneliness to another. I respected their wish. I stepped back. Days turned into months. Months into years. I kept birthdays written on my calendar. I kept gifts wrapped that were never given. My house grew quieter. My heart grew heavier. And still, I left the door unlocked. After my daughter asked for space, I tried to change myself. Not in big ways. In small, quiet ways. I stopped checking my phone so often. I stopped waiting by the window in the evenings. I told myself that letting go was another form of love. But love does not disappear just because you tell it to. Some mornings, I woke up and forgot for a moment. I would reach for my phone, ready to send a message. Then I would remember. I would put the phone down again. The house felt different without their voices in it. Not empty, just unfinished. I kept busy to avoid thinking too much. I cleaned rooms that were already clean. I rearranged drawers that didn't need rearranging. Sometimes, I stood in the kitchen holding a cup of tea that had gone cold. I stared at the sink. I listened to the quiet. Silence can feel heavy when it stays too long. I tried to understand my children's side. I really did. I told myself they were finding their way. That maybe I had been too present. Too careful. Too involved. I wondered if my love felt like pressure to them. If my concern felt like control. I replayed old moments in my mind. Every reminder. Every suggestion I ever made. I asked myself questions late at night. Questions that had no answers. Did I call too often? Did I worry too much? Did I forget to let them be adults? No one tells you when to stop being a mother. There is no clear moment. It just happens slowly. One afternoon, I ran into my neighbor at the mailbox. She asked how my children were doing. I hesitated. They're fine, I said. They're busy with their lives. She smiled and nodded. But I felt something tighten in my chest. I wasn't lying. But I wasn't telling the whole truth either. That night, I sat at the dining table and looked at the empty chairs. Each one held a memory. A spilled drink. A loud laugh. An argument that ended in forgiveness. I placed my hands flat on the table and closed my eyes. I whispered their names. Not in anger. Not in blame. Just to hear them again. Time moved on. Seasons changed without asking permission. My birthday came and went with only a few messages from friends. No calls. No visits. I told myself not to expect anything. Expectations only lead to disappointment. Still, when the phone stayed silent, it hurt. I aged quietly during those years. My hair grew more gray. My steps became slower. I learned how to do things alone. Doctor visits. Grocery trips. Small repairs around the house. I didn't complain. I didn't ask for help. I didn't want to be a burden. One winter morning, I slipped on the front steps. I didn't fall hard, but it shook me. I sat there for a moment, the cold biting through my coat. I thought about calling one of my children. Then I didn't. I stood up slowly and went back inside. That moment stayed with me. Not because of the pain, but because of the choice I made without thinking. I had stopped reaching out. And that scared me. The turning point didn't come with a fight. It came with a letter. It arrived on a quiet afternoon. The mailman slipped it through the slot like any other piece of mail. The envelope had my handwriting on it. At first, I didn't understand. Then I realized it was a letter I had written years ago. A letter I had never sent. I had written it during one of the loneliest nights. A letter filled with questions and hurt and love. Somehow, it had been mixed in with papers I was sorting through. I sat down slowly and read it. The words felt raw, honest, unfiltered. I cried then. Not loudly. Just enough to let the tears fall. That letter showed me something important. I had been holding onto pain quietly, carrying it alone, letting it shape my days. And I realized I didn't want my story to end that way. I didn't want silence to be the last thing between us. Turning point, the choice, almost equals 1,500 words. That evening, I made a decision. Not out of fear. Not out of desperation. Out of love. I sat at the kitchen table and took out fresh paper. I wrote slowly. I didn't accuse. I didn't explain myself. I wrote about love. I told them I missed them. That I respected their need for space. That my door was always open. I told them I was sorry if my care ever felt heavy. That it was never meant to hurt. I didn't ask them to come back. I didn't ask for answers. I ended the letter with one simple sentence. I love you, and I always will. When I sealed the envelopes, my hands were calm. For the first time in years, my heart felt lighter. I mailed the letters the next morning. Then I waited. Not with hope, but with peace. After I sent the letters, life became quiet in a different way. Not heavy. Not sharp. Just still. I stopped watching the phone. I stopped counting days. I had said what I needed to say. For the first time in years, I felt honest with myself. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon, my phone rang. I was watering the small plants near the window. The sunlight was soft. The room smelled like soil and warm air. I looked at the screen. It was my daughter. I didn't answer right away. I placed the watering can down carefully. I took a breath. "Hello?" I said. There was silence on the other end. Then a quiet sound, like someone holding back tears. "Mom," she said. That was all. One word. But it carried years inside it. "I got your letter," she continued. Her voice shook. I listened. I didn't interrupt. She told me she didn't know how to explain her feelings before. That she felt overwhelmed growing up. That she didn't know how to ask for space without hurting me. "I never meant to hurt you," she said. I closed my eyes. "I know," I replied softly. That conversation didn't fix everything. It didn't solve the past. But it opened something. In the weeks that followed, my sons called too. Short conversations at first. Careful words. They didn't apologize in the way stories usually show. There were no long speeches. Just honesty. Just effort. That was enough. The first visit happened on a quiet Sunday. I cleaned the house the day before, then laughed at myself. Old habits again. I cooked a simple meal. Nothing fancy. When the doorbell rang, my heart beat faster. Not with fear. With recognition. I opened the door. They stood there. Older. Tired. Familiar. For a moment, no one moved. Then my youngest stepped forward. "Hi, Mom." I stepped aside and let them in. The house filled with voices again. Not loud. Not rushed. We sat at the table. The same table. There were pauses in the conversation. Small ones. But they weren't uncomfortable. They were healing. I didn't bring up the past. Neither did they. We talked about simple things. Work. Weather. Memories that made us smile. At one point, my daughter reached for my hand. She squeezed it gently. I felt something settle inside me. This wasn't a return to what we once were. It was something new. And that was okay. Ending, reflection and. That was a few years ago now. My children don't come every week. They don't call every day. And that's all right. Love does not need constant proof. What matters is this. The door is still open. And now, sometimes, they walk through it. I learned something important through all of this. Forgiveness does not erase pain. But it softens it. It does not mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over bitterness. I could have closed my door. I could have hardened my heart. But I didn't. Because love, real love, does not keep score. It waits. It hopes. And sometimes, that is enough. If you are listening to this and carrying quiet pain, I want you to know something. You are not weak for forgiving. You are strong. And keeping your door open does not mean losing yourself. It means believing that healing is still possible. Even after deep hurt. Even after long silence.